Well, the Mariner's underway. We're also on the verge of being able to broadcast ports data, and if you don't know, ports data is a physical oceanographic real-time system. There are 27 of them around the country, and that is basically weather information, environmental data, and a collaborative effort between the port partners and NOAA to be able to push out. That will be pushed out via AS as well. AS ATONs. In lower 48 in Hawaii, we are leveraging the transmit capability of the NAIS system, the National AIS system, to improve mariner situational awareness and enhance marine safety information in AIS. We have currently 197 AS ATONs nationwide in these general locations that are circled in the black. All the yellow and green circles you see are AIS towers. They should all be green right now because they're all transmit capable, and that's what that means. So we're testing and evaluating how best to use AIS technology to augment the National AIDS Navigation Constellation. Thus far, AIS ATON has proven to be a valuable addition to the current constellation that can help improve mariner situational awareness. Lessons learned from operational and maintenance of these AIS ATONs, coupled with feedback provided by waterway users, will be used to update our waterway design criteria and policy. While it is universally understood that this technology cannot replace physical ATON for one-for-one basis, we may determine that through testing the design of the ATON constellation that using AIS ATON may be a better solution than physical aids in certain locations. For discrepancy response, ATON in ice-prone areas to mark bridges that you see on the right-hand side. That's actually the Oakland Bay Bridge, where we're actually for the first time marking the bridge abutments instead of just the Raycon at the center span, and marking traffic separation schemes. So why am I showing you this information on lower 48? What's this idiot talking about up here? The reason why is because we're partnering with folks like the Alaska Marine Exchange to bring this same type of technology to the folks in Alaska and the Arctic. Currently, we have a CRADA, which is a cooperative research and development agreement with the Alaska Marine Exchange to help us test the application of this technology in Alaska. One of our success stories that I use around the rest of the country is right here in Cook Inlet. There's a shoal just north that creates a hazard for ships coming in and out. We tried to, at one time, place physical ATON on that to mark that shoal. It lasted one tide cycle, and so Mother Nature overcame our best efforts. And so we're able to mark this now with electronic aids navigation, which provides those ships coming in and out that have the ability to project AIS into their navigational systems, another usable tool where we couldn't otherwise put physical aids. This is the same type of process I think we'll be using quite a bit up in, we're appropriate up in the Arctic. We're also working with the National Ice Center and our International Ice Patrol, which is in Groton, Connecticut, to determine the best way to broadcast ice information. So I'm going to show you a couple slides of what we did this summer on a test bed on Healy. So this was actually, we put an AIS space station on board Healy to do some of this broadcasting. One of the reasons we wanted to test it to see what we could do up here in the Arctic. The second is for port resiliency, being able to go into a port on any Coast Guard cutter after there's a man-made or nature-made significant event. Take Hurricane Sandy, put the cutter in port, be able to broadcast the electronic location of all the aids that may or may not be there, and any debris or shoaling or sunken hazards that the NOAA and the Corps of Engineers find on surveys, we can put on this as well on broadcast. So it's immediate feedback, increase the mariner situational awareness. The captain of the port can open up the port earlier than otherwise be able to do. And this is a portable thing. So right now, if you look up there, that's the ice edge that was broadcast off of Healy. And this is 4 different types of AIS ATONs. One was information on a pier, one was actual ATON itself. Let's see what the other ones are. Yeah, weather information, general safety message, and then the pier marker itself. Can't see them. I don't know whether they're not showing up. So the other thing we did is on their way by, they actually broadcast the position of the aids going into the Kotzebue, into the river system there, based on their last known locations. Any questions? I guess I'll take them when we're all done.
Yeah, we'll take them last time.
Sure. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. I appreciate that. I think one of the highlights from this presentation is technology is a key player, and cyber is a key player in the Arctic as we look forward. 100 years ago, Scott's teams would have been up there building, lighthouses and putting buoys in and doing those kinds of physical things that you would need to ensure safe navigation through this opening waterway. But today, cyber technology is being applied. Alaska Marine Exchange has been a key partner along with this, and I can't say enough for the work that Ed and those folks have been doing there. But this is what's different. It gives us quicker speed of action to put buoys in place to get information from ice information, weather, and other things to the mariner. So it's going to make life a lot better, and it's going to help with some of these other things as they come along, like vessel traffic separation schemes come into play thanks to this technology. So appreciate that briefing. We next have John Higginbottom. He's going to be talking to us, and thank you, sir, for being here. We're going to go through, like I said, a couple more briefings, and then we'll have Q&A, and then we'll turn it over to me. So, John, it's up to you.
Thanks. So I'm going to talk about marine corridors in the North American Arctic. Note, underline North American, because I really am delighted to be here back in Alaska, and the Alaskan focus is where things have to begin. But I'm a Canadian. I'm sort of a recovering Foreign Service officer who spent many years at our embassy in Washington, and then I went to work at our transport department for a couple of years, working on gateways and corridors. That's what got me interested in the Arctic. This was This was the project I worked on. I was very interested to hear in your references to Prince Rupert, because that is the project I worked on right here. There was this port here was transformed from a breakbulk port into a container port, and it was part of a really effective federal provincial initiative called the Pacific Gateway and Corridor Initiative, which with federal government invested about $1.5 billion, but it produced an output through partnerships with the provinces and the railways and the ports, at least $10 billion. It was very successful. It looked at gateways and corridors in the widest sense. A gateway is not just a port. A port is not just a gateway, a corridor is not just a particular railway, but this took advantage of the Great Circle route to Asia, took advantage of underutilized Canadian national rail routes throughout, that went right down to the U.S. Midwest. Most of the projects were in ports in Vancouver and Prince Rupert, but it also included a whole variety of smaller value-added distribution centers, road projects, and so forth throughout Western Canada. This probably started about 2005, and it worked very effectively. And I know now many parts of the United States, through Tiger grants and other things, are doing very similar things now. But this kind of broke new ground at that time. It was when I was working on that I started to focus on the Arctic, because I realized, purely in the Canadian context, of how little was really being done for the development of Arctic maritime systems in Canada. It's just a historical fact. We seriously lack infrastructure, seriously lack icebreakers, seriously lack proper bathymetric work in the Arctic Ocean. Just to remind you of what our Arctic looks like, you have three territories here, enormous territories, with less than half the population of Alaska in those three territories. They're dispersed in some very remote communities in Nunavut, particularly all around Baffin Island. They're only accessible by sea for 2 or 3 months of the year. Other you have the Mackenzie River corridor here. You have the interesting access to the Yukon through Skagway. But you have very complex governance systems up here. There's been a heavy devolution of power from the federal government to the territories, particularly to the Yukon, which is kind of province-like in its status, but then also to Northwest Territories, and finally, its least developed area is Nunavut itself. You also have a complex Aboriginal governance system. Treaties have been concluded for hundreds of thousands of square miles up in Nunavut for Inuit development. All these are good things, but they are very dependent territories on federal largesse. And the investments that we've put into southern Canada in terms of a really modern and effective infrastructure system over the last 100 years, none of the money going into the Arctic goes into those large systems. So that's what got me interested particularly in Arctic navigation once I got out of government and have been working up at the university. This is the beginning of our, you'll remember this, the beginning of Canadian real interest in the Northwest Passage was when somebody else tried to go through it. And Canadians, of course, became quite neurotic about Canadian sovereignty after this happened. We're always a bit defensive about these things, but there was a whole raft of legislation, Arctic Waters Pollution Act, declaring the waters of the archipelago internal waters, et cetera, et cetera. But this was quite an adventure, which you'll all remember the history of this. This was just when Prudhoe Bay they found all the oil, and Esso had the idea that instead of building a pipeline, you would send it through the Canadian Northwest Passage to the East Coast United States. Well, it got stuck in the ice, even though it was a very impressive ship and piece of engineering at the time, and that's how the Trans-Alaska Pipeline developed as a result of that. This is, there are increasing voyages through the Canadian Northwest Passage, in the Canadian Northwest Passage, mostly supply shipping, mostly exports of minerals from the 2 or 3 mines that really are developed. It's grown increasingly, but I think we cannot expect it to grow at a particularly rapid pace because of the constraints of geography in the Canadian Arctic and the constraints of lack of federal government putting the infrastructure into development of those marine corridors up in the north.